Hello and welcome to Recharge Wrestling. It's a one-man mini-pod here for AEW Double or Nothing review. Obviously, a lot of the time we do podcasts to review pay-per-views, but with time constraints and other shows coming up like Hell in a Cell and NXT as well this weekend. We thought we would just do a quick overview of the show. We didn't want to do no content whatsoever. So I'm here on my own to do a quick review video of AEW Double or Nothing, give my thoughts on the show and run through it all and stuff. So I will start with what happened on the pre-show. So there was only one match on the pre-show. There was also a little funny segment with the Acclaimed introducing the show, which I thought was quite a good way to do it. And then the match on the pre-show was Hookhausen, Danhausen and Hook versus Tony Nese and Mark Sterling. And this match was exactly what I was expecting it to be, a fun comedy match to kick off the pre-show. Danhausen trying to curse. There was some good wrestling between Hook and Nese, which we kind of expected. Sterling didn't want to tag in. He was dropping off the ropes. It did eventually get in. Hook threw him around. And then Hook ended up tagging in Danhausen for the pin on Sterling. It was okay. Obviously, it's not going to be a 5-star classic of a match, but it was entertaining. So that served its purpose, in my opinion. The main show itself started with, of course, MJF versus Wardlow. Now, there was a lot of rumours. Well, it wasn't just rumours. It was pretty much confirmed news in the build-up that MJF had no-showed a fan event in the process here. On the same day, and there was a flight booked out of Las Vegas in his name. Obviously, he didn't board that flight, and he did turn up at the show, and he opened the show and wrestled a match. But there's no smoke without fire. There's definitely something going on after in the media scrum after, where they talk about the show. Tony Khan refused to take any questions about MJF, briefed them before. So there's definitely something going off here, and how that leads into the match is obviously we got a bit of a write-off TV angle here, and I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me if we got MJF not on TV for a while whilst this dispute sort of hangs over. So the match was basically an elongated squash match. It wasn't a 2-second squash match, but MJF I don't think hardly got a move in at all. He kept running outside the ring to try and dodge Wardlow. When he did eventually get in the ring, he got powerbombed 10 times. Wardlow, he could have pinned him earlier. He put his foot over him on 2 and then was like, this isn't enough. Played into the crowd. The crowd were so into Wardlow, and they have been, since this feud began. And even before that, you could argue. And MJF was getting booed, called an arsehole. And again, real life plays into that beautifully here, where people obviously know about what happened. And it's really sort of blurred lines between the reality and what's not, what's not real. And I think they've done a really good job here of telling the story based on some of it being reality, and some of it not. And Wardlow getting a big win here was important, and hopefully now he can go on to something bigger. Whether he gets a world title match or anything soon, I don't know, but certainly deserves a big feud to carry this on. Hope they take advantage of this. And then obviously MJF got carried out on a stretcher at the end. That's the kind of write-off angle. I assume MJF probably won't be around for a while. And Wardlow officially got signed by AEW. Contract come out, all elite signs on the thing, and the crowd chanting "You deserve it" at him. It was a nice little moment, and a really good, fun way to open the show, I think, because it was probably the most anticipated feud for me personally, and I think it was the most over thing maybe on the whole show, you could argue. It was never going to main event because of the world title, so putting it in the opening spot I think was perfect placing for it. Really, really thought that was good. Then we got the Young Bucks and the Hardy Boys, and the big matches continued here. I loved the stuff on Rampage pre this with the Young Bucks parodying the Hardys. That was fantastic. And we got a really good match here. The Hardys, they're basically running on nostalgia at this point. They're a complete nostalgia act, like the way it is like 2000 Hardy Boys. And they won. which I actually didn't go for my predictions, but maybe I should have. But yeah, it was a good match. It was a better showing for the Hardy Boys than they have in sort of some of their individual matches, I feel like. But the Young Bucks are great, so they're always going to have a good match like that, I think. There was, some shots with Nick Jackson accidentally taken out Matt Jackson and Cutler. There was a side effect on the apron by Matt. There was some big spots. Jeff dived onto the steps at one point, which is mad. Jeff always still does big spots. I don't know if I think he knows he's not got long left in his career and his run. He's just trying to go out on big high. I just hope he doesn't hurt himself because he doesn't do anything as smoothly as he used to do it. But yeah, some really good stuff. Then they were doing each other's finishers. There was Young Bucks' Swanton on Jeff by the Young Bucks, which they kicked out of. And eventually the Hardy Boys got a win with Matt hitting a twist of fate and then the Swanton from Jeff. Just a really good tag team match. And it's funny, it's interesting to see where they go from here. The Young Bucks have lost a fair bit. They're not really in the title picture. And I don't see them being in the title picture after this loss. Maybe the Hardy Boys are going to be the ones to take the tag team titles off of Jurassic Express, who we retain later in the show. Because I thought they might lose their titles here. The tag team titles, in my opinion, need a freshening up soon. And the Hardy Boys with that win, now seem like the perfect team to have one last tag title run and complete their set, which, they've won so many different titles in their time. To go out and win the AEW tag team titles to sort of end their career would be perfect. Then we got Anna Jay versus Jade Cargill. This match was okay. Jade got a really cool special entrance, which was nice. Anna Jay got a lot more offense in it than I thought. She got a big suplex off the top. She did a move off the top, flew in as well. Then we had interference from Kira Hogan and Red Velvet. Double DDT by Anna on the outside on both of those. There was and then there was a lot of so much interference. You had those two. Then you had Mark coming in, throwing a crutch into the ring, which nearly backfired. John Silver came out and took him out. And then to end the match, we got a debut of Stokely Hathaway, formerly known as Malcolm Bivens from NXT. He came out. Enough of distraction on Anna Jay. Jade hit the Jaded and won. So cool to see him. I kind of said when he got released by WWE, he's the one I would pick up because they love managers and they can use him. I think he's a top manager and promo guy. So, and him being with Jade is perfect. Mark Sterling's got other things. He doesn't need to be with Jade. I think he actually maybe brings Jade's act down a little bit because a lot of his stuff is comedy. And Jade's a very serious. She's got the baddie. She doesn't need Mark Sterling, but to put him in there is fantastic. And then we got the beat down afterwards. And then so Chris Statlander comes out first and makes the save to get her on the show. And then Athena, formerly known as Ember Moon from WWE, comes out and confronts them. So she is a fantastic wrestler, in my opinion. Got one of my favorite finishers in the whole of wrestling in the Eclipse, which I'm sure she'll call something different, but I'm sure she'll still do that move. But I really look forward to seeing her, what she can do in this women's division. The only problem is that they do tend to bring women in, use them a bit, and then they don't get seen that much. I know Ruby Soho kind of got reinvigorated and brought into this show only to lose. But yeah, I hope they do something with her because I feel like otherwise her, Toni Storm, Ruby Soho, they're all going to be in a similar boat where they're on TV a little bit, but not that much. So hopefully Athena can buck the trend and stay on TV and win a title or something down the line. And I said after to the other guys as well, Chris Statlander feels very over at the moment, and she's a believable person to take on Jade. So if they want to go down that route as well and have Chris Statlander versus Jade, then I'm all for that. Then we got an absolutely crazy match between Death Triangle and the House of Black. Now this was an absolute banger. Might have been my match of the night. It's certainly up there. Ring gear was cool here. The face paint and the masks, black and white face paint for House of Black. Pac had a half Penta, half Phoenix mask on. Obviously, he doesn't normally wear a mask. The other two do. Really, really cool. And then just fast-paced action. There was so much going on. I couldn't keep up with it notes-wise, but dives everywhere. Brody King did one. There's a nice destroyer on the apron. And And how the match ended was Pac was about to do his finisher off the top rope. The lights go out, and then Julia Hart came and did a mist in his face. And then Malachi Black hit his finisher, the former Black Mass, I can't remember what he calls it now, but hit that to win and pin Pac. House of Black winning is the right call, in my opinion. I think they're a big faction that are on the up. I do like Death Triangle as well. And like I say, the match was incredible. But I like the finish because it protected them in defeat. Julia Hart thing has been coming for months, and I'm finally glad they pulled the trigger. I think they should have done it a couple of weeks ago when they did that segment. But at least now we've got a conclusion to that story, and I think she looked cool. And I think her being in that is makes her a lot more interesting, and adds a different element to the group as well, with a fourth person and a female member. So yeah, really enjoyed all of this. It was fantastic. Great match. Then we had the 2 Owen Hart Cup final matches. So we had the men's first, Adam Cole versus Samoa Joe. Joe was dominant at the start, slow pace. They were balling around the outside of the ring a lot. Just some good, simple wrestling. There wasn't a lot to this. I thought we were going to get Jay Lethal come in and maybe cause the interference for Cole to win, which is why I went for Adam Cole. Main reason. We did get an interference from Bobby Fish, who attacked whilst the ref wasn't looking. But really, Cole won fairly clean. And it was a good match, but it felt like it ended very suddenly. It felt like it was just getting into second or third gear, and then it just kind of ended with Cole hitting the boom. I was like, okay, that's done. And I think that's because they had so many matches on this card. And my one criticism of this show, the biggest criticism anyway, is the show was too long. And all AEW pay-per-views are like that because they only do 4 a year. There were at least 2 or 3 matches on this where there were good matches, but they could have just told the story on Dynamite and done them on Dynamite. They didn't necessarily have to be on the pay-per-view. And that is my main criticism of this show. I wouldn't put this as one of them, but I think they could have given this more effort, and it would have been an even better match had that been the case. But Adam Cole won, and then Britt Baker comes out and has her match straight after, of course, Adam Cole's girlfriend with Ruby Soho. Again, a decent enough match, nothing particularly special. What was really cool was my favorite part of the whole thing, actually, was the entrances. Now, Britt's was a bit weird because she had the fuzzy guitarist. It didn't seem to fit that well with the music or whatever. But Rancid played Ruby Soho to the ring, which was awesome. I like Rancid as a band. I like that song, that entrance. And for her to have that moment was really cool. And I did think to myself when I saw her doing that, I was like, oh, she's going to lose, isn't she? Because she's getting this cool entrance and big moment. And a lot of the time, that means you're losing. And Britt has kind of reached Charlotte Flair push territory where it feels like she wins at the expense of everyone else all the time. But I get what they were doing here because I actually predicted this in my predictions. So Adam Cole would win and Britt Baker would win, and they'd celebrate together afterwards. And that's pretty much what happened. With Martha Hart coming down, nice speech, and awarding the trophy to them. And the match itself was decent. It wasn't anything special. A couple of near falls each. Was a nice stomp from Britt, which nearly got in. Then she tried to get the lockjaw in. Ruby did try and go for a sharpshooter, which was a cool moment. But the match was only won by a roll up in the end, which I felt like in a match of this sort of caliber, a final of a tournament that's been built, I was a little bit disappointed with the flat finish. I think they should have done something a little bit more. I'm not sure in the long term, Britt winning is the right decision either. There was a lot of boos when Statlander lost to Ruby on Rampage. There was a lot of controversy about that. And I think Statlander winning this tournament might have been the better way to go for it. And if not, then maybe Ruby. I don't think Britt Baker needed it, but I do understand why at the same time. But yeah, that wasn't a particularly popular thing online, I did notice as well. But yeah, an okay match, but not a great match and not a decisive finish. Then we got Men of the Year and a debuting Paige Van Zandt versus Sammy Guevara, Ty Conti, and Frankie Kazarian. Now, they had a really good match here. Brilliant outfits from Tay and Sammy here as well on the entrance. Really cool stuff. And the match was just good. Paige Van Zandt obviously impressing on her debut. I think she did a lot of her sort of MMA style stuff. It was kind of like Ronda Rousey when she first came into WWE. And I like the fact there was some interaction with the women on the men here. Paige did a DDT, like a tornado DDT on Sammy Guevara. She got a Michinoku driver on Ty Conti as well for a near fall. There was a bit where Frankie Frankie was getting annoyed with Sammy and Tay, and he kind of left them high and dry at one point to take a bit of a beat down, but he didn't leave the match. He got back into the ring. And eventually, and he did a cool cut and he got a near fall from that. And then the cool end to the bit at the end of the match was Sammy accidentally taking out Ty Conti, which I thought was a cool spot. And that led to the finish with a TKO on Kazarian to win. And the stipulation was that Sammy Guevara and Frankie Kazarian can no longer wrestle for the TNT title. So I think that's a positive move in this case, because I mean, they've done this before with the Cody World title thing and it kind of didn't work. But honestly, Sammy Guevara and the TNT title, that's an era that needs to end. Like he's had it. He's had like 2-3 runs with it, whatever, and they need to move on away from that. And Frankie Kazarian, I don't think is ever going to wrestle for it again anyway, so that's fine. I think that works. Darby Allin versus Kyle O'Reilly. This was a last-minute addition to the show, and this is one of those matches where I feel like, did we need this? We could have told the story on Dynamite. They kind of rushed into it, announcing this match. I think they could have done this match this Wednesday on Dynamite to blow this feud off. But the match itself was a really good match. I can't say too much about it. It wasn't that long, but Kyle O'Reilly, just watching him wrestle, is awesome. He's so good. Submissions and his strikes, he's so smooth to watch. And Darby's just crazy. So he does coffin drops onto the apron again. And in the end, Kyle ended up winning with a diving knee drop. But yeah, how I feel about this match, it was good, and it was fine mid-card. One of the best matches, to be honest, in wrestling-wise on the show, but did it need to be there? Absolutely not. I think this is one of those things where they could have left this off quite easily. Then you got Thunder Rosa versus Serena Deeb, which as a feud, I don't think it's been well built at all, but the match itself was very good. Really good technical wrestling, particularly from Deeb. It was very 50-50 in terms of who was getting the offense in. Deeb did hit the Deeb Tox at one point. Rosa got a foot on the ropes. But then there was a lovely superplex into a Thunder Driver for Rosa to win the match. Really cool finish. Clean. Feud, I'm pretty sure, was done. Thunder Rosa gets a big win, which she definitely needed for her title reign. I feel like she's been floundering a little bit, just in terms of she's not her fault at all. She's just not been doing much on TV. No matches, very short promos, not really built the feud that much. The big feud was Deeb and Shida. Deeb won that and then kind of moved on, and they quickly done this feud. And yeah, hopefully now Rosa goes on to something really meaningful. That's what I want to see next. But yeah, this was a really good match. Probably, I would say it was the best out of the women's matches on the show. In fact, it definitely was. Then we got a crazy match between Jericho Appreciation Society and the Blackpool Combat Club with Eddie Kingston, Santana and Ortiz. And this was just a bloodbath. We didn't know what to expect. It's Anarchy in the Arena. It's a new match type. I knew it'd be just a big brawl, but I was surprised at how far it went. So they were playing Wild Thing, John Moxley's music, a lot, because I liked it at the start because it was chaotic. It made a chaotic start where they started brawling before the guys had entered the ring, and Moxley's music was still playing, but it went on and on and on. After a while, I was like, please, this needs to stop. Because one thing I love about matches, in particular, in big pay-per-view matches, is hearing the crowd reaction and how I'm into it. You couldn't hear the crowd because there was just music playing over the top and the same song over and over again. And after a while, I was getting a bit annoyed. And then Jericho eventually stopped it by breaking the sound box, which was meant to be a heel spot, but I cheered for that because honestly, it was getting annoying after a while. And I preferred it after it stopped, to be honest. I know some people probably liked it, but I liked it as an idea at the start, but I just think it went on too long. But yeah, this was just crazy. Mox used a fork pretty early on. Everyone was just covered in blood. Jericho was trying to get away. Santana and Ortiz put Hager through a table. Kingston went backstage with the fans and was balling in there. It was all around the arena, a little bit in the ring, but most of it outside the ring, in the stands, backstage, all over the place. Daniel Garcia was probably the only one man not bleeding. He was pile driving people onto steps, Ortiz onto the steps. Garcia was dragging Kingston around with a belt tied around his neck. There was all sorts of crazy stuff going on. They were ripping the ring apart, hitting each other with the turnbuckles. Something you don't really see. Barbed wire table came out at one point, which Mox got thrown onto. Santana and Ortiz did a crazy spot off top 2 ladders. I forgot about half of these. Okay, again, my notes. I wrote a lot of notes, but I couldn't keep up with everything. There was so much going on. And then I really liked the last 5 minutes of it because there was a much more actual wrestling in the ring. Jericho, Bryan, Moxley, mainly involved with that. But Bryan was kicking out of everything. Then he was like doing his kicks and stuff, and he hit 2 the psycho knees. Jericho kicked out of that, which I was surprised. I thought that was the end of the match. Then Hager came in with a bat and a double submission on Bryan, and he actually passes out in the end. So the Jericho Appreciation Society won, which I was surprised by. And it was Bryan that lost the match for them, although he passed out. He didn't tap or anything or take a pin. But yeah, what a crazy match. Did they do a little bit too much? Maybe. You could argue that maybe it went on a little bit long. The one bit that was crazy, I forgot to mention it actually. There was a bit where Jericho was in the ring beaten up, and Eddie Kingston come down, and it looked like a scene out of GTA. And I've seen this some memes being tweeted about it. He's covered in blood. He's got a white top on, like vest thing on, covered in blood, and he's got a petrol can in his hand, and he pours petrol over Chris Jericho, and I'm like, what's going to happen now? And then what I liked was Bryan Danielson stopped him and was like, look, they might be on the opposite team, but that's too far. And then Bryan and Kingston started brawling them up with each other. But I think ultimately that ended up maybe costing them the match because they weren't really on the same page towards the end of the match. And I think you can tell that story. And maybe Bryan and Kingston may have something going forward, maybe have a match. But yeah, that bit was really interesting. I really liked it. Moving on, then we got a little clip with Andrade with Jose the assistant, and it looks like they're kind of moving this forward because I'm not really a fan of the gimmick with the family office. It was crap when Matt Hardy had it. It's not much better with Andrade. I want Andrade to be doing more, and they brought in Roosh, who is a former Ring of Honor guy. He might be on the Ring of Honor brand probably, but him being paired with Andrade could be really cool. I've never seen Roosh. I've heard about him. Apparently he's a really good wrestler, so Andrade's a great wrestler. So pairing them together, that seems like a decent enough thing. Hopefully we get them and less of the family office thing, which, to be honest, I don't really like. I think it's one of the worst gimmicks in AEW. Sorry, quick drink there. Not used to talking this much without the other guys, chiming in at times. So, yeah. Then just 2 more matches to go through. There was a tag team triple threat match. Now, this one, I really didn't know which way it was going to go. So I was very interested in that. Really like Keith and Swerve as a tag team, or Swerve and Our Glory, I think they call themselves. I love the spot they do where Swerve does a flip off Keith Lee's chest to the outside. Luchasaurus had an awesome hot tag in this match. There was a bit where it was a Hoss fight with big men fighting in the ring. What was interesting was Christian kept getting involved here and kind of cheating a little bit. And I think that might play into the story and Jungle Boy looked annoyed at one point as well with Christian and Jungle Boy, maybe one of them turning on the other. I see that happening and maybe costing them the title. I actually predicted that to happen here. It didn't. And it ended up working for them. What was funny was they're doing it behind the ref's back, and it was a triple threat match, no DQ anyway, so it didn't really need to. That bit didn't make sense, but that was just a small nitpick. But nice double moves from all the teams involved here. I really like Starks as a wrestler. And yeah, when Christian interfered a second time, he nearly got rolled up by Swerve, but in the end, Jurassic Express Swerve to win and retain the titles for Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. But yeah, I think that needs freshening up a little bit soon. And then the main event, the big match, CM Punk versus Hangman Page, was awesome. The dual crowd chants at the start. I think there were a lot of people who wanted CM Punk to win. There were some that wanted Hangman Page to win. Both having heelish tendencies in the build, and Hangman, I felt like, really amped that up in this match. Crowd were definitely more into Punk overall, I think. But the match itself was really, really good. given a lot of time. There was a bit where Hangman goes for a buckshot lariat. Punk saw it coming, knocked him into the barricade. Page hit a powerbomb on the apron, which was really good. There was his Ohio moonsault to the outside. There was a sharpshooter by Punk as well, playing into that sort of Bret Hart stuff again and the Owen Hart stuff, which Page eventually got out of, but it took a while. And then CM Punk tried to hit the buckshot at one point, slipped, and then he did hit it, and Page kicked out. So he went for it twice. So some really good wrestling here. Just a dead eye, that's a cool move. That got a near fall. But when Page was on top at this point, the crowd were booing it. And I was kind of confused who they were rooting for at times. And then there was a bit where Page signaled for the GTS, did the little, thing. And I'm like, okay, now he's really, really getting into this. And he hit the GTS, in fact, but CM Punk did kick out at 2. And then the finish was really, really interesting. I thought really good. So Page was taunting Punk with the title outside earlier in the match. The ref gets knocked down when Punk's going for a GTS. The ref got kicked and was down. Page hit a little lariat, and then he sees the belt in the corner, and he just slowly stares at the crowd. And he's like, "Shall I do it?" And the commentary are really playing this up brilliantly as well. Eventually goes over, picks up the belt, and they can't believe he's going to try and cheat him and hit Punk with the belt and win. And he goes to do it, but then he changes his mind. He hesitates and ends up changing his mind. And because he changes his mind, he goes for the lariat instead, but that gives Punk enough time to recover and the ref enough time to come round. Punk hits the GTS and wins. So a massive moment for Punk. His first title in like 9 years since he had the WWE title. So it's huge for him. He was very, very emotional afterwards. You could see it meant a hell of a lot to him. And I don't think it's the wrong decision. I think Page's run has been a bit underwhelming. I kind of saw it coming when TK Tony Khan in the build-up was sort of putting Hangman over, saying he's been the best AEW champion. I think he's been the best champion. I thought that's a nod, a thank you to say, even if he believes that, doesn't believe that himself. I kind of felt like it was him saying that to thank him for his title run. But I think we're going to get an interesting moment now with Punk. It's really intrigued to see the future, where this goes. I've seen some people criticizing it because you're putting over a right older guy, a big former WWE star. But I don't think putting it on your biggest star is necessarily a bad thing. Punk doesn't have to have a really long reign with it either. I think he could have it for till the next pay-per-view, or maybe 2 pay-per-views. It's not, he doesn't have to have a year-long reign with it for it to be, bury all the young talent. I don't think they'll do that with this, but I am intrigued to see where it goes. Definitely. And I think the match was really good. Overall, I thought the show was a pretty great show. There were a couple of matches that maybe didn't need to be there, had finishes that weren't as good as they could have been. And I think AEW, that's a bit of a problem with AEW in general, is they try and fit too much things into one show. Too many debuts, too many matches, they just get a bit excited and try and throw everything in. Some people love that, and some people, are a bit more critical of it. Yeah, so just a bit on the length. A couple of matches that didn't deliver quite as high, but there were some that really, really did deliver. Overall, really, really good show. Not a lot else to say about it. And that's my review of Double or Nothing. So I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel. We have so much content on here. We have, obviously, we have our weekly podcast reviewing everything from AEW, WWE, and NXT. We have all pay-per-view reviews, prediction videos as well. And we have gaming content from WWE 2K22. So there's loads to look forward to. Follow us on Twitter @RechargeWrestle, where we post updates all the time on what we're doing. And you can find us on Facebook as well if you want, Recharge Wrestling. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.